Okay. Um, well over 50% of the people in the United States, and I don't know, I haven't read any worldwide studies, say that their mental health has been negatively affected by COVID. And all the other things that we've talked about, you know, the civil rights marches, the attack on the Capitol, the political divisiveness have just added to that. But we're just reach our limitations, and so what do we do? How do we cope? Um, and how are we being affected? What are the ways that you recognize that you're being affected by all this? So I want to talk a little bit about the effects first, and then I'll go into what we can do. So to start with, there are a lot of people are feeling depressed. Now, what does depression mean? I mean, what is sort of a sad, melancholy feeling? Well, yes and no. For a lot of people, it's other things. And some of these things may sound like, well, that's what I do when I'm in COVID. But you know, they don't do their regular routines. They don't take a shower. They don't brush their teeth. They don't change their clothes. They don't, you know, the kinds of things that if you were to look at a person pre-COVID and you say, man, what's wrong with that person? Now that we're all doing it. And, and so I guess I say to you, pay attention to why you do what you do and realize that you may be experiencing some lack of motivation to do things that you normally do. And that to me is like a low level kind of depression. Now, I'm not trying to diagnose people. I'm just saying that to recognize the effects that COVID has had on you and your behavior and your choices is an important thing. Staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning when you normally went to bed at 10 o'clock. You know, I want to say isolating from other people, but that's sort of what we have to do now. But that too would be a sign. You know, if we were all locked in our houses, people say, why is that person locked in their house? We'd think they were depressed. But we're doing these things. We're kind of being forced to do these things. And many people are regressing into patterns of behavior that are not necessarily productive for them. You know, other things that people have been experiencing, anxiety is up. You know, one of the things about getting out in the world and doing things in the world is that we've done those things. And because we've done those things, we don't have as much anxiety or fear about doing those things. Well, as we come in close, as we stay isolated in our own homes, getting out becomes a little bit more stressful, creates a little more anxiety. One of the things that happened to me a few months ago is the first time I got in my car and drove on the freeway.
Oh.
You wouldn't think that would be a big deal, but I've driven on the freeway a couple hundred times since I've been here. You know, but when I got on the freeway, I was worried. I didn't know where I was going, or I wouldn't be able to get where I know how to get to. And I didn't know if I would be able to drive in the same way everybody else was driving. I mean, those little things that pop into your head and make you wonder and worry and feel a little unsettled in a situation you would normally feel accustomed to and capable of and comfortable, very easy for you to do, may be causing some level of anxiety. And again, all I'm asking for you to do is to think about what is causing you anxiety right now, what is causing some stress on you right now, as you do normal and natural things you've done before 100 times or 1,000 times or however many times. For some, just going outside their house is creating some discomfort. And as you find yourself doing fewer and fewer productive things, we've seen some impact on people's esteem, how they feel about themselves. They feel good about themselves, you know. And people when when they're not capable of being productive in some form or fashion, it can begin to negatively affect how they see themselves. And again, some of these things may sound very much like what we're doing right now, but I think it's important for us to consider where these things are coming from for us. Things like procrastinating, sitting around more, feeling tired more often, taking more frequent naps, leaving the house untidy. I mean, I mentioned to yourself, not taking showers, not changing your clothes, those kind of things, but leaving dishes undone for days on end. And what does it take for you to be able to do those things? How much energy does it take for you to be able to do those things? To be an awareness that how much of a struggle sometimes that might feel as you try to get up and do things that you would normally do without thinking, that would be just routine. In addition, some things are imposed, but something and makes you wonder about whether or not you can do them. Like, I went to the dentist the other day. It took me a month or two to decide to go to the dentist. Now, if I wasn't in COVID, you'd think, man, there's something wrong with that guy. But that's one of the things that's happening now. I haven't gotten a haircut since last March. So, I'm still working through that. And I used to get a massage fairly regularly because, I have muscle aches from time to time, and it's a way of reducing the frequency of those. And I haven't done that for fear of what might happen. I might catch COVID, but, and maybe that's a real fear, and maybe it's not. Right now I choose to think that that's a real fear and I need to pay attention to it. But going to the doctor to get my yearly physical, it took me a while to get myself to do that. I need to get my eyes checked. I mean, these are simple things I wouldn't do without thinking. But, right now, there is something keeping me out from doing those things. Part of it is the restrictions. Part of it is some fear. Part of it is reality, that there is some risk. And so we're struggling with all of those kinds of things right now. So again, I ask you to think about this and how it's affecting you. And as we talk about what you can do to manage this differently, you may want to relate it to some of the symptoms that you're having or some of the limitations you're experiencing. And again, trying to figure out, is this a way of protecting myself, or is this creeping depression or anxiety resulting from having been in this situation for so long? We just don't have the coping strategies to go out and do the things we need to do, or we have so much anxiety or depression that it just saps our resources. One of the things we know about depression, for instance, is it makes us inconsistent in the things that we do, the things that we would normally do, and it requires more of us to be able to do the things we normally do. A few of the other negative impacts that we've seen: increase in eating and weight gain, consumption of substances. I'm not gonna go. Yeah. So I just signed up for one of those COVID vaccine trials, and they was like, "What's your weight?" I don't know. I don't want to know. These are all things that can be part of this. And even the chronic conditions we already have. I mean, many of us, I don't know about you all, but a lot of people I know have something that they're managing, physically. It'd be diabetes or, cholesterol or blood pressure or something. And those tend to exacerbate, to get worse in these kind of conditions. One other thing, I'm just running through the list of some of the things I've been aware of, is an increase in domestic violence. And it's interesting how they found this. First of all, it's what I've been talking about. People are afraid. And even if there was some predisposition toward that we are all on our last nerves in reacting to one another. And so even though they've done some surveys about domestic violence, they haven't seen people reporting that there's more domestic violence. The way that they determine that there is an increase in domestic violence is there's more people going to their doctors and to the emergency rooms with, they've been hit or they've been slapped or they've been, beat in some form or fashion. And people have begun reporting on that. So we're not always, I don't think we're always honest about how this is affecting us. If somebody calls us and say, "Are you doing all right?" Everybody's gonna say, "I'm okay." But until it reaches a point where we're so uncomfortable we can't deal with it, that we go to the doctor or the hospital to try to manage the symptoms, and including domestic violence. The symptoms is, the damage that's being done to people because of being so, with having so few coping strategies right now. So what do we do? So, these are the symptoms, but what are the solutions? And so I guess the first thing I'd say is, I want to ask you all is, what do you normally do to cope with stress? What is it that has worked for you? Let me ask you all to respond to that, because then I want to talk about some of the other things that are on my list, but I want to see what you all are doing. What are you doing to manage the stress during this COVID time? So if any of y'all would respond to that. Yeah, Bob.
I exercise.
Okay.
I've been exercising for 60 years, so I do whatever the body allows me to. At 90, I'm not exactly too limber, but I do whatever I can. Get a good enough exercise to actually get tired. And I find that calms me very well.
Okay. Anybody else?
I look for comedy.
Okay.
And childish things. I think it's important to be in touch with and take care of the kid part.
Mm-hmm.
So, even if the entertainment is mindless, if it makes me laugh, then physiologically it's really worth it.
For me, I primarily just try to get out of my own head, and that's primary. I do that by reaching out or trying to help somebody else.
Good, yeah. James, I know you do meditation. Is that?
I do some meditation, but I also look for free lectures on how to deal with COVID-19. And they're here and there, a couple of weeks long, but they're usually like professors in like Canada and places like that tell you how to deal with it. I think a lot of the difficulty is that there's still an understanding by people that they're serious about it, but they don't understand it. Mm-hmm. So it causes conflict. You're trying to have, an idea what they're saying, and they're just hysterical because they don't really know what it is. I see it all the time, different people, but I've been reading, like I said, I read up on it. It helps me understand. I don't try to get too technical, but like I signed on today because I knew you would be providing your experience of dealing with people. And to me, that's just as important as taking a free lecture or something like that, because you've seen people like depression. They consider people ignore depression, but it's a common thing among the whole population. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like there's so many things on, but I just think for me, the idea is it's just a conflict in different people's seriousness of what it is. And like they said on the news, it's going to go for approximately 7 more years until they get all the people inoculated. And that's hard to believe. I don't even fathom that.
Well, I think what I don't know. I'm hoping they get the inoculation gets done before 7 years, but I think that we are going to have to cope with. It's going to take a while for this disease to go away. We're going to continue to have to get inoculated, and we're going to continue to have. I mean, we are not going to go from as it was before COVID to after everybody gets a vaccine to it being completely, like it was before. It's just not going to happen. I
got my first vaccine shot the other 2 days ago at Jackson, and it was extremely hard to get an appointment. It was like like in basketball, you pass the ball from one person to another, and finally you get the basket. Well, finally I got the appointment,
and that's creating more anxiety for people. I mean, in depression, and you put in hours and hours, and you unless you get the luck, you make the basket, like you said. Most of the people I've had experience with, at least at the beginning of this process, it was really about, you got someplace at the right time, you got on the phone at the exact right moment. It's getting better, but that created and does create, and you're hearing it on the news every day. I can't get a shot. I can't find a place. There is no appointment, and that's just creating more anxiety. And
yeah, I'm very thankful for the VA in that I get my second shot on Tuesday.
That's wonderful.
That's great.
So one of the things we're hearing, I mean, I'll mention, you've already said, Bob said exercise, Janice, essentially comedy. Distractions are useful for temporary purposes, watching TV or something takes your mind off. These are sort of temporary things that can give you a modicum of relief from some of the stress. I think they have limited usefulness because I don't think they're a long-term strategy. And that some of that anxiety is still cumulative and we're not necessarily paying attention to it, but I use it as well. I mean, I watch Netflix, or I think we have more stations now than we've ever had. We have Netflix and Disney Plus and HBO Max. I mean, you just, it's like you accumulate these things because there's, what do you do? I mean, and I've bought my own weights and bicycle, and I'm gym in my garage now. But but I say to you, all those things are important. And what I've realized over time, as I've worked in the field of psychology, is that we need a comprehensive and numerous coping strategies. No single one is going to work every time. And no single one is going to be useful for certain situations or certain feelings or certain stress that we experience. And so one of the big strategies that a lot of people use and that we're having real difficulty with right now is human-to-human contact. I mean, some of us have someone that we live with, and that's lovely. But yes, Bob, it's really, but if we don't, and not having that physical contact, I don't know, you remember the studies of the rhesus monkeys where they didn't have physical contact and they just withered away. I mean, we need physical contact in one form or fashion. And we've been, we've had very little or none. I mean, I can't tell you how many hugs or handshakes or those kind of things that I used to get and it does something physically for us. I do think that it's important. Zoom has been a useful tool, although I think I mentioned earlier, there are limitations. I think calling on the phone is another way, but people have found unique ways that I think are very important to us. The drive-bys. We've had people that have, came over Bob's house for his birthday and drove by and sang to him. I mean, we have to think outside. What?
Two different people came over at different times. We had a front lawn party for a half hour.
And those are the things we have to start thinking about. Those are thinking outside the box in ways of making contact with each other in ways we wouldn't have thought to do before. And so I think, again, finding ways to have physical contact, talking to people, sharing with people. Yeah.
one of the things that I do is minimize my watching the news.
Mm-hmm.
I put a half hour in the morning, and maybe in the evening, I'll watch Channel 2 where they have some really excellent news program. But if I watch that stuff, I become obsessed with anger. And what can I do with the anger except spit? Or write nasty letters to nasty politicians.
You know,
very good at.
Your lovely wife might appreciate your spitting less. So, and Martha and I've done the same thing. An intentional. We've said we will not turn on the TV until 6 o'clock at night. Regardless, we just are not going to do that. I mean, that's for our mental health. We just feel like that's. It forces us not to sit down in front of this TV tube and, you know, whatever it's made of now, and watch it. And I think, again, there are things we have to set some boundaries on for our own well-being. I think it's also important for us, especially at times where we have to wait. And right now we're in this big wait while we're all trying to get shots and we're all trying for things to come back to normal, or we have to wait in line, or we have to wait to make a call. How we cope with waiting is really important. You know, in Alcoholics Anonymous, they use serenity prayer, you know, to accept the things I cannot change, and you know, to recognize the things that I can. But how you cope with waiting is really important. So, you know, James has, you know, I come back to you for just a second. Just say, you know, meditation is really helpful. Being aware, for me, Buddhist meditation in particular is useful because you're going to have these destructive kind of thoughts that pass through your mind, but allowing them to pass through you rather than getting attached to them and letting them control your emotions or behavior is really a useful tool. So it's like the way I used to describe it, or sometimes I do, is seeing those destructive thoughts while you're waiting, you know, as in the horizon, far away, like ships passing across the horizon. And you're just seeing these thoughts pass in front of you, and you're not grabbing them or you're not pushing them away. You're just letting them pass. And as they, you know, you can recognize that they're there and you're aware that something is going on within you, but you're not trying to control it. You're not trying to manage it. You're just letting it pass through. And that's a strategy that works for some people.
Well, I am. Can I say something?
Sure.
I started sketching again.
Mm-hmm.
I used to like to sketch and then outline in charcoal pencil, and since March I picked up the sketch pad and I started sketching. It's really the way I release a lot of my tension.
And people are doing that. I think that's fabulous, James. I think, you know, people are painting. Our neighbor is building furniture. You know, people are doing things they haven't done in a while or never done before. Journaling, there's Bob writing there. You know, all of these things are really helpful. And you know, one of the things I used to do with patients is if they had something that was they were really struggling with, I'd ask them to write about it, not to try and fix it, not to try and find a solution for it, but just to purge some of the stuff that's going on inside of them by getting it out of them, because we're not talking to each other as much. Talking is so important, but if we don't have that to turn to, writing, or even when we sketch, you know, that maybe we sketch with those feelings in us to let that come out in how we sketch.
One of the things I do when I go to the grocery store, I thank everybody that I contact and tell them thank you for being here, because they're in the front lines. When I'm done with my groceries, I go home, I'm safe. And they're exposed all day long to strangers who knows what they're carrying.
Well, Bob, that's actually good on a number of different levels. You know, it not only it makes them feel better about what they've done, but it also it lets you feel like you've done something with purpose, exactly. Something that is important, something that means something not just to you but to somebody else. And so I think that's really valuable.
Well, I'm glad they're there. Otherwise, I'd be very hungry.
One of the things I'll mention too is as you go to the grocery store, is to be aware of its impact on you. Not necessarily the impact of catching COVID, but the impact physiologically on you. One of the things I'm aware of for myself is when I go to the grocery store or go to church when we're recording or whatever, that I come back with a little bit of a headache. And what I think that is just this worry that, you know, I've gone out and exposed myself to potential danger. And so I've come back. And when I come back, I try to make time for some meditation with an awareness that this has had an effect on my level of stress. So again, I think we all need to at least have some awareness that simple things may have an unknown impact on our physiology or psychology that we wouldn't otherwise know. Yeah, James.
Do you listen to meditation music? Do you have a source, specific source? Because I was just curious.
Yes, I do.
Oh, go ahead, Bob. What's yours?
I have a tape. It's a very meditative tape. It's called Winter Solstice. It's very peaceful and relaxable. And when I'm eating, I play that softly in the background. I find it actually aids digestion. Mm-hmm. It's just so peaceful and calm. And it goes on and on. It's a classical style, you know, not rock and roll. That's for sure. And I find it's relaxing. It plays for over an hour.
And I've gone online. I guess, you know, it used to be, there you go. It used to be that I'd look for tapes and stuff like that. But nowadays, what I'll do if I'm in need of listening to some peaceful music, I'll go online and look for like nature sounds or woodwinds music, and they'll play for hours. You can get some that play for hours or for a short period of time. And again, I'm glad you asked, James, because I think sometimes listening to rock and roll may seem like it's fun and interesting and it's helpful to do the housework, but it doesn't necessarily reduce your physiological arousal. And listening to something that's more peaceful might be useful. Yeah.
When I'm working out, I'll have some jazzy music on and stimulating.
And I think that's useful. Again,
do a few extra sets.
Get your physiological. And I think, again, in this time of COVID, if you know, music can help to either calm down or increase your physiological arousal if you want to go do something. Exercise, I think, is a great, or housework. Have some, you know, music that gets you stimulated and get you out doing what you need to do.
Well, I'm a hobby cook, so sometimes I can take an hour or more for one meal.
I'm working on there's a few, I don't cook a lot, but when I do, I usually cook recipes that require, you know, some strategy.
It's fun.
And they're different every time. And that, I'm doing that more now. I find I'm doing it more now because, again, it takes my attention. It makes me feel productive. And there's some positive result in the end. Now, I want to offer a few other ideas that are kind of outside the box. And these are ones that I when I was doing this presentation to the interfaith group, that we really spent a bulk of our time with. And ritual can be really important during this kind of time. And what I mean by ritual is a repetitive activity that you imbue with meaning. And so it could be like we do on Sunday mornings, lighting a chalice, but it could be, you know, that there's a ritual that Martha Harrison does that I just love. She goes out to the beach and watches the sunrise. And that, you know, it's just a simple thing, but it's a ritual that she's imbued with meaning and that provides her a sense of grounding, even though, you know, everything else, you know, there are things going on in her life which are not necessarily great. But with this little ritual and the meaning that it provides for her, she's able to feel like she can handle it. And those kind of things, we can each choose how we do or what they are and provide them with meaning. And it does, it gives us something to hold on to. So, and again, I talked with the other religious leaders and they, you know, it's something that we've known about human beings for a long time. Religions have known for a long time that ritual does make a difference. But we need to decide ones that that work for us.
The sunrise for me indicates that I woke up.
I assure you that Martha has given much more meaning to it than that.
So far, it's just been 4 of us talking. I really haven't heard from Christine or Glima or Janice.
Well, Glima wrote, I'm recording this. Glima, would you like to jump in and ask any questions or have any thoughts? We'll stop for a moment.
Hi. I find that work, like just having work to do, because I'm really the only one working amongst 5 people that my paycheck is supporting. So I enjoy everything that I do. And even though that's not supposed to be meditative, I think it really helps to do work that you enjoy. So, and then sometimes you don't do your yoga in the morning. I haven't done it for a year, but then I just have to start forming that habit and get it into a ritual state. So just do that at a certain time in the morning, maybe watch one less Netflix episode and get up a little bit earlier and incorporate that. And this Friday, I haven't done any music for about 6 months, but this Friday I started with a friend of mine on Zoom. So I really didn't want to. I kept making excuses. He said, "Oh, come on, just do it." Yeah. So I just went on there and did it. It just feels better. Yeah. So it's just like incorporating those rituals into your day, and not rituals, I guess, but habits. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's what I'm learning, but I'm very judgmental on myself. So I have to let that go.
Yeah. One other thing I would say to you, and I just want to, because I hate to use you as an example, but Glima, there has been an increase in the amount of work that people do, and that may be true for you as well. I mean, you're the breadwinner, but even people who are on salaries or whatever, they're working more. It's like to fill the time, to fill the space, and I think there's some pluses and minuses. Certainly, there's some your productivity goes up, and you're able to get more accomplished, and your mind is not cluttered with other things. But there's a lack of balance, and that's where I'm glad that you're bringing in some of these other things, into your life, like the yoga and the music, because you'll find that if you lean too far in one direction, there begins to be negative consequences, whether that be on your mind or our body, your ability to cope with situations. I think that you get out of balance. So I'm not saying you're not alone. I mean, the research is showing well over 50% of people are working more now than they ever have. But it's a way of coping, and anything we do to an extreme, there's likely to be negative consequences. Whether you say drinking to an extreme, eating to an extreme, exercising to an extreme. I mean, too much. That idea in Buddhism of moderation is really the key in this, and it's easy to forget that in just trying to get through the day. Thank you for sharing.
I'm actually finding some benefits for me with this time. For example, I'm getting a lot done using Zoom. I'm reacquainting myself with family and family conferences over Zoom, where I might only see them at holidays. And now it's every 2 weeks we have a family call and that kind of thing. One of the big benefits for me is I can both lip read, and the clarity of speech coming from that goes directly from my laptop to my ears is better than when I'm outside in the general world because of other background noises and all the rest of that kind of thing. The people have forced themselves or needed to learn some technology, And that's an improvement from my relationships with people I'm trying to help as far as technology issues and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I'm actually much closer to actually starting a business.
Oh, wow.
More because I can use technology and people are used to it now, where I wouldn't have been able to work as remotely in a wider area. So there's been some positive things for me from over this.
I think that's an important, it's really important, Sam. I think, you know, finding things that are positive, that productive, build your self-esteem, economically great. You know, those are the things that we have to keep an eye out for.
Now the negatives for me on this is that I didn't put on the COVID-19, I put on the COVID-30. And I'm having to address that. And I'm getting less exercise now, and I'm aware of that and the like. And just getting the motivation to do some of that has been somewhat more difficult than it would have been in the past, I suspect, because of the.
I'll be over your house tomorrow.
Say that again, Bob.
I have a big stick. I'll be over your house tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, the stretching and yoga, because I have some problems with my shoulder right now.
You do what you can. I'm 90. I'm medicine-free, drug-free. My blood pressure is like 120/60 in that range. And I think that the exercises creates that for me.
Yes.
You can't beat the value of the exercise. It's a mind-body connection. It's a Buddhist philosophy.
Yeah.
And I tell my body sometimes my knees hurt or this hurts. I tell it, shut up and let me get on with my life. And it works.
Yeah, I recognize it. I just haven't gotten up to do it.
Well,
enough.
So Sam, you're not unlike a lot of people right now.
Right.
And I would say the vast majority of people are finding, motivating themselves to do something. Exercise, just one example. And, you know, we used to do things like join gyms or find somebody to walk with, or, you know, there are a variety of, I mean, I had, one of the things I started early on in my life is to find a reason. For me, it started with, you know, friendship and fellowship. You know, I played racquetball and spent time with people and developed friendships, and that got me out to do it. Well, you know, more lately, it's been, you know, keeping my health, but it's still challenging. And so, you know, you have to find the thing that works for you to motivate you. I mean, it could be having Bob come to your door and, you know, with a stick, but there may be others. I mean, you know, you could find one of the things, for instance, I do for meditation is to remind me. I have an email sent to me two emails actually sent to me every day to do reflection on. So you could have someone send you a reminder, or you could do something like that for yourself. I think there are certainly lots of options if you invest money in something. Sometimes you're more likely to do it. Like certainly you buy yourself one of those exercise bikes, you know, where the instructor comes on and tells you what to do.
Peloton, yeah. Peloton.
Both, yes. And you know, sometimes people are motivated if they pay for something, they feel like they have to do it. I mean, you're going to have to find the motivation that works for you. It's different. Seems to be different for everybody.
Well, that's a good question, because is there motivation behind going down and sitting and meditating?
I think there is. Yeah, I think it's a good question. You know, we don't do it unless, for some people don't do it until they get uncomfortable enough to do it. That they have.
I've been meditating for about 12 years, and one teacher told me something that changed my whole life. She says, "You're not focused." She was talking to me and I was looking away, and she caught me at it. And since then, this is about 2 years ago, it's easier for me to focus on exactly what I'm doing at this particular time. It makes me more polite to other people. and I miss very little because I'm focused in, especially when I'm driving. God,
Well, they call that mindfulness. Mindfulness.
Yeah,
Galima, you have your hand up.
Yeah. Mindfulness and self-awareness.
Yeah, I wanted to say I was inspired when I see James and Chris's and Carol's postings about the walks they do in their neighborhoods. And I want to do that too, but just finding the time to incorporate that. But I just wanted to tell James that it's inspiring to see your photography, and even just seeing it on the screen, it helps, but obviously it's not the real thing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, I enjoy it. I don't get many places to go really to take photographs. Like before, there was more bus access to Coconut Grove and more rides to different places. So it's usually neighborhood things, but that's a form of meditation that I do when I want to release my mind thoughts. I just go out and try to take a simple photograph. So that's the way I like to be.
It's so important you're not going to find time. You have to make it. You have to block it in as part of your health program. So many hours a week, whatever you want to give to.
So I have a friend who found a way to exercise, but I don't know if you want to do this. They bought a dog. and they have to walk the dog. And so, they have to get outside and it's like, you don't have a choice. You have to take care of this animal.
Absolutely. That's a great solution. The dog adds 10 years to your life easily.
It does. Well, and one of the things, I got a dog and I found that it improved my mood. But I mean, you can't rely on one single thing or look for one panacea for everything, but you have to find the thing that works for you. Janice, I'm going to ask you, are you there?
Yeah, I had something to say. I was just going back and forth in my mind between the positive and the negative. I could do an hour on what's wrong with this, and I could do an hour on bright sides. But the thing that's challenged me recently, I thought I was doing so well with this. I took it with the Serenity Prayer and this too shall pass, and there are good things. So, just chill, not be reactive. I think I've been that way up until just recently, because I really miss my family. And we did not see each other. We have various things through the year where we get together every time of year for different things, and we missed all of them. And I coped with that by just thinking, well, we're doing this so that next year we can all be there, and that's okay, and that'll be all right. And the thing that's gotten to me just in the last week is I realized that it's starting again. The St. Patrick's Day will be missed, Easter will be missed, and etc. And I didn't think it was gonna, I thought it was, I had my mind set for giving up one of each of these things, the birthdays and Christmas and everything. And I feel like it's going to continue now. So I'm going to have to readjust myself, because I am not as hopeful that we're going to get together this year either. On the positive note, I'll say one thing that my clients seem to react well to is I see some kind of high-powered people who are very into business and grown-up stuff. And we talk about their connection to the child part of them, because a lot of people have lost it. So one thing people are doing is ordering stuff on the internet for their kid, like if you gave a present to your 6-year-old. So like grown women or men, coloring, doing puzzles, ordering a model plane, ordering a remote control truck that they put together, and just giving themselves permission to nurture their child part, because it's also serious.
It's very true. But again, in moderation. I think all things in moderation. I also heard that people are buying
more clothes. Color all day long?
Yeah, people are buying clothes more than ever right now.
Well, I was talking about toys and playing.
Yes, I agree with you. Again.
There's nowhere to wear the clothes.
Yeah.
Well, but again, I think even taking care of your inner child, which I think is really important. You have to bring balance to also being aware of what you need to do, other things that you need to do to take care of yourself. And I think these are all, again, all these strategies that we're reporting are all wonderful things. And I encourage you to try all of them. They're wonderful in moderation, you know, and realizing that not everyone works for every situation. I think people get so locked in with one single thing that they can do to fix how they feel that becomes an addiction in some form or fashion. And we just have to be careful. I want to offer just a couple more things, and then I wouldn't try to say anything negative, Janice. I just want to be sure you're. I think that's a wonderful idea about attending to your child part.
I unfortunately I haven't gotten to the danger of attending to it too much. I'm looking forward to that, but I'm not there yet. There's too many adult things that must be handled.
Just a few final thoughts, because we're going to be ending in a few minutes. And somebody else alluded to this idea that this too shall pass is one of those things that can be useful. Just a simple thought, you know, or realize you've been through a situation before and you've handled it and managed and made it through. I think these are ideas that have worked for many people. And if you look at the long, you know, it's your whole life in terms of what the situation is, you know, it can make a difference. You know, things that you've gotten through, things that you've been exposed to and managed. Go ahead, Glima.
I just wanted to know if you had any tips for when one is doing work that's drudgery, i.e. corrections. I have, like, you know, I teach. Yeah. So like I've taken up chewing gum or eating celery, or at one point I got, like, you know, that stuff you get in an Indian restaurant, the sweet sort of mixture at the end. I ordered bags of that, and when I had to correct one, I'd take a teaspoon, and when I finished, I can't figure out a healthy way to do drudgery work other than, you know, singing sea shanties. That doesn't work for me.
Well, you know, again, if those work, I mean, again, you don't want to rely on any single one. Eating too much of the sweet stuff would be problematic. But I'll tell you a couple of things that I've found to be useful. We can see what other people here have thought as well. I tend to do the things I don't want to do first before I do the things I want to do. I know that sounds simple, but for me, I have always 100 things that I need to get accomplished. And I find, if I'm aware of it, which things I gravitate toward and am more likely to do than the things I'm not. And it just works for me to do the things I don't want to do and get them out of the way first. It just, I feel such relief. And even at times, celebration, to celebrate completing what I've done in some small way. You know, one of the things that we found to do throughout our lives is to celebrate accomplishments. And I think we've forgotten some of that now. You know, and even little things can make a difference. You know, a good example is getting through college. You know, it's gonna be 4 years to get through this thing. And we have to look for the little things along the way to celebrate, making a good grade on a test, you know, getting through a class. It's the same in a smaller scale, celebrating the things that you've accomplished. Also, again, I come back to this idea that you know that you'll be finished. Sometimes when you get into a project that you feel like it's going to take forever, is to remember a situation in your past where you've gotten through it, where you've managed. One of the images I have in my mind, and I remember that it helps me in these situations, is my mom used to always ask me to weed the garden. And if you've ever weeded a garden, you know, it looks like you know, you're going to be there all day. And because you're having to do it by hand. I mean, my mom had been weeding this garden by hand. And I reflect back on that and seeing it, I never thought I would finish. And then I did. And that kind of realization at times, bringing that to mind, helps me feel like I can accomplish this. I've accomplished far worse, you know, in longer periods of time, and things I never thought I would be capable of that would take forever, and I'm able to get through them. So finding something inside you that gives you that sense that you're capable of doing, that you've done this, that you're, you know, can sometimes get you through.
Janice and I ran the kitchen at Swim for 26 years. It was a 1-week retreat. And everybody hated to do the dishes. So I said, in my previous life, I was a scullery maid. I'm an expert with the dishes. And as soon as I'd start in them, other people would come in, because happiness draws in a crowd, really. But in your case, I would recommend, how much money am I making by doing this? I guarantee you, when you realize you're working for a paycheck, and when you get done, you get paid. That will elevate your mood. Just thinking of the money going into your bank, and you'll smile. You have to smile.
And Bob, for some people that works. And again, you have to try all these different strategies and see what works for you, Glima.
Well, you got to find what works for you.
Yeah. One more thing that I want to offer, and that is to think about, this is, we'll come to a close after this. And again, I appreciate all your time and willingness to be with us today and sharing
thank you
your
for
thoughts
being
and
here.
feelings. The last thing I'd like to share, and just for you to think about, is about hope. And that is that if we have hope, if we have a thought about what we're going to be able to do, where we're able to go, what we'll be able to accomplish, hope in something, that elevates our mood and helps us be more able to manage the stress, manage the depression, manage the anxiety. So each of us holds hope in something. You know, for some it's hope that we'll be back to normal at some point. But there may be hope in smaller things along the way. That like Glima, maybe you're holding out hope when, waiting for your children. You know that they'll return from college someday and be in your home again, and you'll be able to be with them and hug them and all that. You know, there are little things that you look forward to in the future that provides that, for some of us, that sense of hope. And so I guess I would say to you, think about what it is that you're looking forward to. What is it you hope for? What are you looking toward the future for? Or what you want to work toward? Thinking about that, not as a sole thing that's going to carry you forward, but as another thing of many other things that you're doing to manage yourself, your life, your stress, your depression right now. I want to thank you all so much for your time. I must stay. Go. Thanks, Bob. Take good care. And if you have any questions that come up later on, please send me a question, or if you have anything you'd like to share, I'm happy to talk more. Okay?
Thanks for doing it.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.